everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric here with AJ in Medellin, Colombia. Today is Wednesday, August 31st, 2016. This is episode number 138. And today we wanted to do something a little bit different and give you guys somewhat of a State of the Union address. We get a lot of questions about Abroaders as a business, and in particular, sort of how we got to the point we are now, and some specifics about sort of how we make money, where the idea came from, how it all works. And so it's been sort of a slow news week, and we wanted to take a chance to just sort of share some stuff that we haven't ever shared publicly before about the business. And so I'm really excited actually to do this episode. There probably won't be a ton of links, but we will have show notes and audio for the episode at abroaders.com/honesty. All right, man, let's get to it.
Sounds good. Yeah. So like Eric said, we've made a lot of progress. A lot has happened over the last 6 months with Abroaders. So we wanted to step back and share with you guys where things are right now and what some of our big ambitions, what some of those big goals and dreams are that we can achieve together. And those of you that might be checking in for the first time, have not listened to this podcast before, we will be back to a more traditional episode next week where we'll have news and updates, and we'll take a deep dive into something particular about points and miles helping you save on flights. So Eric, you want to lead us off getting into all this, talking about where we are now. Let's take a step back. Let's share a quick history of Abroaders.
All right, man. So we originally started this podcast. I think the first recording was sometime in the fall of 2014. And
I think it was the fall of 2013, actually.
You're right. Yeah, because we launched in January. So we were in Bali, Indonesia. We had just booked a really cool 60,000 point and like $80 around the world trip. And at the time, we had started a web design and development and marketing company. That was what was making enough money for you and I to eat and have a place to sleep. And we had been working on that for a couple of years, and we were starting to realize that it just wasn't that exciting. And we got into this conversation about starting a travel podcast and about trying to help people do what we were already doing with Points and Miles. And so basically, we started this podcast at the beginning of 2014. We signed up our first customer, I don't know, maybe like around February. I think it was like Mark Brenwell. I'm pretty sure he was.
Yeah, I think he was one of them. I think Edmund Lowell was one of the first ones. One thing I wanted to remind you of, do you remember the main inspiration for us to start a podcast?
I remember for me, it was hearing a bunch of people with super cool podcasts at the Dynamite Circle conference.
Exactly. That was the huge takeaway. I remember Dan of the DC and Empire Flippers guys, some of the more established businesses, those kind of their one takeaway. Do a podcast. It's free. It's easy. It's unique.
It was good advice. And actually, that's a good thing we can put in the show notes. Some of the inspirational podcasts that sort of got us started, definitely Tropical MBA. We've been featured on that podcast once and soon to be again. The Empire Flippers is a good one. There's quite a few pretty cool podcasts in the DC. But yeah, we came away with this idea. We really didn't have a clear vision of what Abroaders was going to be at the time, but we knew we wanted to help people sort of repeat the same process that we were doing. And as we started working on releasing episodes of the podcast, people started emailing us saying like, hey, I've got these cards. I want to go here. Can you help me? And that was definitely an aha moment for me of, wow, maybe we can actually make this a service. Maybe we can make this a paid sort of engagement where we're consultants and we help people figure out what to do.
Yeah, I think on just a very basic entrepreneurial level at the time, we said, if we can save a lot of money for ourselves, we can save a lot of money for other people. And if you can save other people a lot of money, you can capture some of that value by asking for a fee that is justified and it still leaves them plenty of savings. So we thought we're onto something at the point.
Yep. And so fast forward, we kind of struggled through this process of how do we market this? What is the service? What do people want? Who are our customers? And so we went through this really interesting growth phase for the first year. And we kind of settled on a relatively high-priced product, between $300 and $500. That was a package to help people get a couple of flights and sort of walk them through the earning part of getting all those points that they were going to need for the flights. And so we'd give them hand-picked credit card recommendations. We'd make sure they didn't miss any important deadlines like their spending requirement, and then we'd book the ticket. And that worked extremely well at a small scale. We had some really happy customers, and a lot of them were telling their friends, and their friends were coming along. And so we realized that we were definitely onto something. But also, I don't know if you remember like the spreadsheet scenario. And like by the time we were like through the first year, we had at least 2 different spreadsheets for each customer. We had emails going out. We were trying to use Trello. We were trying to use all these available online tools because you know how to build websites because of our old business, but neither of us knew how to build anything from an application level that was going to make it possible to do this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you consider tracking each customer, each card, dates, annual fees, annual fee numbers, when they got approved for a card, when they're expecting a bonus, how many points they currently have, their travel dates, travel windows, have they had a flight booked for? We changed the price a couple of times. We changed the offer a couple of times. And now we're tracking this person has 1 flight credit. It became, once you get to 100, 200 people, it became a lot to manage.
Yep. And I remember, I think it was around this time that we first got Infusionsoft, which I don't know how many people out there are familiar. It's a automated marketing tool. It's a customer relationship management tool. So the idea is like keep track of all your contacts, send them emails, create these campaigns. And I remember us trying to figure out what eventually became sort of the underlying framework for the app, but we were doing it with email. So it was like, hey, we recommended this card. Did you apply for this card? And you click a link in the email and it updates the system. And so it actually turned out to be a really good sort of bootstrap, hack it together experience with these first sort of 150, 200 customers, because we had to sort of figure out how to do it without the technical know-how.
Yeah, and I think that's really huge. You definitely learn the pain points when you have to do things manually and you have spreadsheets and you're setting up emails. So I think that was actually a blessing in disguise that it was such a pain in the ass. It really showed us the things that needed to be automated. And that's something that we're going to touch on a little bit is kind of where we're at now compared to the older model. But another thing too that was a pretty big deal for us was, do you remember when we were on the Tropical MBA?
I do. So it was, first of all, it was like the first time I ever did an interview on a podcast that had a big following. I was nervous as hell. Thought that the interview went really shitty, after listening, after I didn't even want to listen to how it came out. And after it was released, we signed up like 20 new customers in a matter of days. We looked at our bank account. We had like $4,000 or $5,000 in the bank and a whole bunch of new people to help. And I think that was actually the point where we realized like, okay, this is awesome. We definitely could scale the marketing side of this. How can we actually help thousands of people? Because past 200, we're going to be working 100 hours a week, and that's not sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. And that is when we had a little bit of a gut check moment on where we're going to go, because there's just big time scalability issues keeping the current model without making any big changes. Hint, hint, something technical. And so by October of 2015, we decided to go all in on Abroaders. We ditched the web design and marketing company. Thank you to the clients of Green Growth Media, but shit, that was difficult work at times. So like I said, October 2015, we decided it was time to make some moves. And another thing that was going in parallel with us figuring out exactly which direction we're going to go is we ran into an angel investor in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, when we were just there to do some travel and meet one of our friends, Rick Lima, who's got a pretty cool startup that's based in Sao Paulo.
Yeah. Do you remember? So we were there probably like early in the year 2015 was the first meeting. We had met Rick through the Dynamite Circle, and he had worked with Fabio, and he said, let me introduce you to this guy that invested in our company. He's a really, really cool guy, and he's been a super helpful mentor. Is really knowledgeable. He's having this meetup here in Sao Paulo. I'd like to invite you guys. Do you remember? So we met with a whole bunch of founders, and I think at the time we were sort of pretty anti investment.
Yeah, at that point, I remember thinking, hey, we're going to keep everything bootstrapped. We're going to do it ourselves. We're never going to have investors to answer to. We don't want any outside influences because we've got this unique vision, and anything but our vision, and any input would be a really bad thing because it's kind of like our little baby.
Yeah, so we sat down with Fabio, and I remember kind of grilling him with AJ about how it worked and what these deals were like. And clearly, like, we knew nothing about investment, and in particular early stage investment, sort of how these deals are structured. And he was super helpful at sort of explaining. And at the time for us, it was sort of more of an educational thing. Like, hey, maybe someday we start a company where we're going to need investment. Maybe it's helpful to know about this stuff. And then fast forward towards the end of the year, we had continued those conversations. We had sent Fabio updates and let him know sort of how things were going. And then we realized, like, now is the time that we sort of have to decide whether we're going to keep the status quo and just keep kind of making a little bit of money doing this concierge service for a few people, or whether we're going to try and change and scale this model to help hundreds of thousands of people. And I mean, that sounds really ambitious, but that was sort of where we realized that the money was necessary, because to switch between an approach of like, let's do $100,000 a year in business helping, a few thousand customers versus let's put everything into making something that can serve the masses, that's a totally different model, totally revenue difference. Everything has to change.
Yeah. And a huge difference about going with a scalable model, a technical solution, is neither one of us, we can't donate our time. We can't build that ourselves. It'd be one thing if Eric was a programmer and Eric says, all right, AJ, get out there and just sell. And then I would just build. We could have done that, but you're not a computer science guy. I'm not a computer science guy. So that means we needed outside help, and we needed some money to get that done, because we most definitely did not have the means to hire a competent technical person, let alone a CTO, truly somebody that's going to take the technical vision of the company, where we're going to communicate to them the vision for the feature set and the value we want to provide and the underlying information and our approach to points and miles to make it technically sound.
And that's actually one of the key things that Fabio did as a sort of this first piece of advice that he gave us was that we needed to hire a CTO, and we needed to give away some equity of the company so that that person was invested in the project. And we didn't talk at all about, like, at some point prior to this, we had tried to build an app by hiring a firm, and it went horrible. Right?
Yeah, it went really bad, and I think, and Fabio's a really bright guy. This is not his first rodeo, and actually, I don't even remember, but that was one of his requirements for us. Is like, if I'm going to invest in you guys need a CTO, and he needs to be good, and he needs to believe in the vision. And I mean, looking back, that requirement is a blessing in disguise, because it's almost impossible to contract a software company with limited funds to do something big and accurate and on time.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, the conversations continued. Now it's towards the end of 2015. We're starting to sort of hedge in what the terms of this deal are going to look like. And by early on in 2016, I was flying down to Brazil to do an investor presentation with Fabio, with a bunch of people in his network in Sao Paulo, to sort of pitch the Abroaders idea. And for the first time, this is where it really came into focus how important it was to have a bit of a long-term plan for the business. And, not just talking about what we want to do, who we want to help, but specifically, who are the customers? What are the traction channels? What are the revenue sources? How does this business work? How does it make money now? And how will it make money in the future?
Yeah, investors do not feel very warm and fuzzy about, well, we think we're going to do this. There is an opportunity here that I think we'll be able to check out later. Even though it was a frustrating process to not invent numbers, but just come up with precise numbers and projections, because they're going to be wrong. Maybe we're above them, maybe we're below them, but shit, I mean, it makes sense. So if I'm going to be giving somebody a lot of my money for a company, I want some specific answers. I want to know what the hell you're going to do, how you're going to get it done, and I want to know about some contingency plans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that was a little bit of a challenge here is, and this especially came up when I was doing this presentation. We did 2 presentations in Sao Paulo where I talked with prospective investors about the Abroaders business. And in particular, we talked about our traction with the sort of the pilot program, which was our high touch concierge service. And one of the challenges here is that, number one, in Brazil, the banks don't give away any sign-up bonuses.
Yeah, the stuff we do, the stuff we podcast about, there's no equivalent in Brazil because there's not the opportunity. There's just not the market for it.
Right. So there are frequent flyer programs program. So fortunately, I didn't have to explain that part of it. But a lot of the parts about how we can help you guys so fast to acquire points with the sign-up bonuses and the rules weren't in place there. So we had a really interesting sort of experience of explaining the complexity. But the bottom line that made the whole thing work is that we were able to show the value on the back end because we had booked maybe 500 tickets by that point. So we had actually, with that concierge, and reflecting back now, it was a really good way to start the business, even though we certainly wasted some time in that if we had it to do over, we could have moved through those stages faster. But knowing, okay, this does work, people will apply for cards, people will get the points, and then we can actually help them book a $2,000 business class ticket for $150. Having that was what made it really possible to build out those projections that you were talking about and say, absolutely. Okay, this is where things are. So let's talk about the revenue model for a second.
Yeah, so the revenue model that we decided was going to be the future of Abroaders and would provide us the scalable solution, we hedged a little bit by keeping a couple of our services I think are really important services. So the revenue model is earning money from booking flights. That's our flight booking service. You've got miles, you don't want to be bothered with booking the flight, or you just want to pay somebody that knows how to get some extra value out of that. We've got the membership, which is some additional support, some additional consultation, some additional tools and resources, and some freebies on services. And then the third piece of the business model was credit card affiliate commission. So this means we recommend a credit card, somebody signs up for a credit card, and we get paid on that. And that's a pretty sticky situation, getting a relationship, finding somebody that says, hey, yeah, we'll work with you and we'll pay you for each sign up. And then also internally, we've got some compliance stuff, and we've also got a conflict of interest that we need to be very aware of as far as making sure that we continue to serve the community and serve our users as opposed to being the short-term financial gain thinkers.
Yep. Yeah. And so at this point, we already had proven beyond a shadow of the doubt the booking flights part of the model. The second part with the membership had some traction, but was still sort of unproven. And number 3 with the credit card commissions was a huge question mark because we didn't know how long it would take to establish relationships with the banks. And we also just weren't really sure what that would look like over the long term of, what percentage of cards, how things might change, whether we could actually earn money from the cards in a way that was going to support developing a free product. And that was sort of the core piece of the business plan that we worked on with the investors is, can we actually have a model that works without having to charge the person who's actually using the service? So that being the traveler, you who wants to book a trip using points. And the credit cards represented a huge opportunity if we could get those relationships to be able to say, okay, we're not going to charge you. We're going to take some of that money that the bank's giving away anyways to attract new customers. We're going to use that to build a tool that ultimately helps you sort of take advantage of the credit cards and the airlines.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, it's the account. You create an account for free, and it's free, and it's going to be a really good tool, and we're going to continue to build it out because of that money that the banks are tossing around to acquire customers. And if we're already to recommend cards to people, we may as well keep the thing free, no annoying ass advertisements and pop-ups, and find a way to monetize it in a way that doesn't create any friction and doesn't get in the way of the mission and helping the customers. By the way, the way we've been helping them before. This is the exact same thing we did before we had any relationships with banks or third parties. We were still recommending credit cards. We're sending the bank a lot of business just because it was best for our customers, and now we're just going to capture a little bit of the value.
Right, and in the old model, we were asking the traveler to fork over $300 or $500.
Yeah, so in the old model, people paid to have us recommend credit cards and book flights, and now we're moving towards it's going to be free to get those recommendations, get this points earning, and the only difference is there's not going to be a guaranteed booking on the back end unless you pay a little bit, but it's still going to be way cheaper for everybody, and the money is going to have the product be better for the end user. So it's truly a win-win amongst our community and
it's
us.
Kind of like, hey, would you mind if the bank just pays for your premium account with us? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Can the bank pay for this? And so the interesting thing is, number one, the bank is paying a ton of money to you, the credit card holder. When you sign up for a card and you get that sign-up bonus, most of the bonuses that we're working with are worth at least $1,000. So that's a huge factor. On top of that, the banks are already paying out these commissions to folks who refer those new customers to them. So you may have noticed that until recently, we haven't had any of the normal advertiser disclosures about credit cards. And that's because up until now, we haven't earned a penny from any credit card affiliate commissions. However, we've finally gotten to that point. And so as of the release of this show, some of the cards that are on abroaders.com and some of the recommendations we make will generate money for Broaders. And so that's a huge thing that we want to talk about with you guys because as sort of our early adopters, it's really important that we want to have as much transparency as possible with the fact that some of the cards that we recommend earn money, because that's a huge conflict of interest potentially. And so we want to address it with you guys.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important that we're extra transparent. It's not that the frequent flyer miles and point space is a really shady space or really deceptive space, but I don't think it's exactly the most forthright and open about how they make money. You go to a blog, you kind of assume you might make money on a card, but you got this advertiser disclosure that said cards may be placed in certain ways depending on how much. It just, it's not super transparent, and we wanted to be as open as possible, letting you guys know that, beginning now, we do get paid on credit cards, not all of them, but most importantly, you need to know that we do get compensated when you get approved for a card through one of our links.
So the second really important thing here, for those of you who haven't signed up for the app or aren't familiar, one of the first and most important features that we released is handpicked card recommendations by the Abroaders team, which, as we talked about earlier, was fundamental to us coaching people through at the very beginning of how they could sign up and earn the points and get the travel that they wanted. And so one of the things that makes us totally different from anybody out there in the space. The blogs write reviews. They say this is a great card. This is the best card, but they're not actually looking at anything about you.
Nothing personalized.
They don't know what your other cards are. They don't know how many points you have. They don't know if you're going to Asia or you're going to Africa. They have no idea. And so what we're doing is significantly different in that we are actually taking a look at all of the data that you share with us and making a recommendation. And so that's why I think it's even more important that we're honest and we set some ground rules about how we're going to manage recommending cards. And most importantly, that the money that we make from cards is not going to factor in.
That's a really good point. And to touch back on the whole personalized recommendation thing, anyone that tells you which credit card is the best and hasn't asked you one question about your spending or your travel, they're just lying. Maybe they're trying to help you because somebody else told them something, but there's a huge difference. I mean, there's probably 25 or 30 different credit cards we've recommended in the last week or so because there's so many different scenarios based on people's existing cards, travel plans, spend, and points portfolio.
Yep. So we want to take the strategy or create the strategy that earns you the maximum number of points that are actually going to be valuable to you. So regardless of how you frame things, with the strategy and the way that we're trying to help folks maximize their frequent flyer points, it all comes down to trust. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time to talk about how we operate and exactly what goes into the decisions, and make a case to you guys that we're always going to put your best interests first, because that's ultimately how we succeed and how we help millions of people with points and miles.
Yeah, exactly, man. We're not going to get to hundreds of thousands of users or a million users by ripping people off and just doing shady shit, recommending the wrong cards. We're going to get there by recommending the right cards, helping them maximize the amount of points they earn, and using them in a very intelligent way. So earning and keeping your trust, it's the only way that we can win, like we said. And it's the only way that we can get to that point of getting a bunch of users, is to have that trust and to be leaders and be a very trustworthy source of information and recommendations on things like credit cards. So with saying that, we're going to make a couple important promises to you guys. The first one is that we're always going to recommend the cards and offers we believe to be best for you, regardless if we earn a commission or not. Means nothing if we make money or not. We're to get you the best card, and statistically, we're okay with we'll make some money in the long run, and we're okay with that. So we will always recommend the best card, no matter if we get paid or not. Second one is we will actively seek out the best offers and cards on your behalf, and what that means is if we have a link from an affiliate link with a 30,000 point bonus, we're not going to stop there and just be pumping out that recommendation. We're to go out and look and see if there's a 50,000 point link. And actually, a current example of this is in our app, we're recommending a Citi AA card with a 50,000 point bonus, while we've got the 30,000 point affiliate link on the back burner. We're not recommending that because it doesn't make sense. It's not the best card. So like I said, we're going to actively seek out the best offers. Even if we've already got links that we make money on, we're going to always seek out the best offer.
And then lastly, and I think this is probably somewhat obvious anyways, but you can always choose not to use the links that we provide. I mean, the real value delivery is actually the recommendation, right? Mm-hmm. The point is that you want to know which cards you're eligible for and which one makes the most sense with your plan. So, you're never going to, the point of doing this is that we can finance building a awesome free service. However, you're certainly welcome to use a direct link. Just go to the bank's website, try and find the same card. But I think this is a cool social experiment, honestly, because I think that a ton of people are going to support us.
I think so too, man.
Possible.
I've fielded a lot of emails recently when we recommend a card, somebody asking, well, is there a link that you guys get commission on? And like, we had one guy, Jesus, he was about to sign up he was about to turn down a 50,000 point offer for Amex Gold for a 25,000 point offer. I'm like, here's the deal, man. The 50,000 point offer is way better. Just sign up for the damn thing, get your points, we'll be okay. But I to your point, I do think people are going to be keen to support things, so I think people get it. But then again, if there's something weird, something personal you got where you don't like affiliate links, whatever. Like, I think we're going to win in the long run. I think we've got a pretty loyal base.
Yep. So I guess the last thing, and this was, I think, your idea, maybe Jake's idea, but I think it's a really good one, is that we want to put a reward out there for you guys to help us find the best links. So basically, we think we're doing a really good job. We spend hours and hours and hours every week reading blogs, looking for the links, trying to find any targeted offers. However, there's always a chance that something's going to slip through.
Yeah. So what we've put in place to keep ourselves honest and to keep ourselves, competitive, always trying to find the best offer, and also to reward you for helping us, is if you find a better offer than we recommend you in the app, and what we mean by a better offer is a public link that anyone that the community could benefit from, and you send that to us and you find a better offer than we recommend you, and it's public, meaning a bigger bonus for the same amount of spending requirements, we'll send you a $100 Amazon gift card to thank you for making us aware of a better offer that ultimately helps the community at large.
It's a huge part of the overall benefit of having a large platform, is that we can benefit from the fact that we actually know what targeted offers are coming out to all these people. We can find out sort of who's getting approved for what cards. It gives us real data. There's a ton of speculation out there about, how is this rule being enforced? Is this rule that the bank has about 65 days from the last application? All that stuff boils down to the fact that you guys are willing to help us help everyone else by reporting your experience.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, if all we've got is a 30,000 point bonus and we don't know of anything better, and somebody finds a 50,000 point bonus, in not too long, that's going to mean millions and millions of extra points for app users. Yeah. We're talking about, in not too long, this will be tens of thousands of dollars in travel, hundreds of thousands of dollars in travel savings before we know it.
Yep. So certainly please give us feedback on the information that you see in the app, and continue to communicate, because that's been a huge reason that we've been successful so far, is that folks in the community have reached out and given us information that helps everybody. So one thing, I guess, sort of to wrap up the discussion of how we are going to handle the conflict of interest with earning credit card commissions and also making the best recommendations for you. One of the awesome things about being small right now is we have total control over what's going on. And we realize that's not always going to be the case. So like literally right now, if you sign up for the app, it's AJ and I in our apartment in Columbia talking over like, hey, what do you think we should recommend to John and Susie? I was thinking this card because, they've already got some United points.
Hey, travel plans are only 5 months out, so this minimum spends lower. They're going to turn over the points in 30 days, not 60 days. Man, but that bonus isn't as big as going with this other bank's card, and then that inches them closer to 524.
So bottom line, we are in a position right now where we're actually doing a ton. We're super hands-on with this. Now, we know that to be able to get to the point where we can help hundreds of thousands of people, we're going to be building a team. And so I guess I just want to reiterate that our commitment to putting your interests ahead of any financial incentives that we have will never change as long as AJ and I remain at Abroaders and running the show. That's how things are going to operate. And, certainly we want you guys to give us feedback, not only on offers and things that are out there, but just encourage you guys to send any comments or questions about this episode to us, Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. Because this is super important to have that feedback, and it's exciting to sort of be on this journey with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too, if there's any entrepreneurs out there, I know we've got a fair amount of entrepreneurs would love to connect and talk about raising a little bit of capital. And that doesn't mean that we're experts, but I think we learned a lot. And I think there's a lot to share on maybe what not to do, and then even moving forward. But it's always interesting to connect on. You can always share ideas. I'm sure if we chat with somebody, I'll learn from you and you'll learn from me.
Yeah. Please do reach out. Any of the content that we talked about on the episode, especially the investment thing, because I think there's a long list of things that we could have done better. It's only a matter of experience.
And there's also a long ass list of things that we could have gotten screwed on. And thank God Fabio wasn't a shark, because we were definitely exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. If you haven't signed up for the app yet, definitely do that because we are standing by to make some awesome recommendations.
Just go to the homepage. Just go to abroaders.com. It'll be obvious. Big ass orange button. Sign up. It's free.
If you do already have applications planned, a lot of you folks are looking at the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which I actually just got approved for, so super excited about that. But if you already know which cards you're going to get, we would definitely be very grateful if you would choose to use the links on the Abroaders website or sign up for the app, and we'll recommend cards to you so that you can get those.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, show notes for today's episodes are at abroaders.com/honesty.
Thanks a lot, man. It was fun being honest, getting under the hood a little bit. Thank you guys so much for being with you. I know we got some people that have been here since the very beginning, so we love you guys. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.